So once again, I have been caught with no makeup and really greasy hair. I'm always wet from being in the swimming pool. I am having a very informal meeting over the tea room with Bart and my friend Kathleen Deo. Kathleen came over because we are dying to do some kind of research in the neurosciences. Kathleen has the most extraordinary backstory, which I'll let her talk about. But I think, you know, the whole page is a lot of times about cellulite and the before, and, you know, it gets better, it gets worse, and we're talking about all these things. But I just want you to know that behind all of this, these nerdy conversations take place. So if you are not interested in neuroscience or how fascia influences, we had just gone off into the actual spirituality where Kathleen spent years. So anyway, I'm going to just let it roll for about 5 or 10 minutes and just let you guys in on the stuff that happens behind the scenes, because this whole conversation came up because we have 2 patients, and I'll let Kathleen speak about those 2 patients that we wanted to use the FasciaBlaster on and share their stories with you, so that we go a little bit outside of cellulite and beauty and more into and then my son calls. Okay, so I'm going to try to prop up where we can see everybody. There we go. Get close. All right. Okay, Kathleen, so tell us about the 2 patients you have and why they're so exciting, because I'm excited about them too.
Well, working with...
and talk loud, just because the phone.
Okay, sure. No, I think we have a great story. What's fun about doing this today is that we're going to catch them on the absolute front end of it. Nothing's been done. They've had no experience with FasciaBlaster or with any real mechanical treatment of these problem areas. So what's fun is we're going to include the viewers and everybody out there on it from the very start. These patients, one of them that's agreed to participate, has most problems walking because of spasticity and contractures and neuromuscular constraints that come from an old brain injury. Not only
all the way back to Vietnam.
Vietnam, exactly.
Yeah. So that's going to be a really interesting story. And Kathleen was sharing with us that, you know, she's on the page. She's a user. Kathleen and I have known each other forever. Our kids are named the same thing.
But, so are we, but then we just...
I know, that's so we're kindred spirits. But she was telling me that, you know, a lot of times on the page, people will say, oh, that's photoshopped, or oh, that's not real. And she said, well, they can't say this about this particular guy because...
Well, so this guy with his brain injury has amnesia. So we were talking about interviewing him and asking him his problems and how he was this morning. It's not going to happen. What you see is what you get. There's not even a placebo effect, because he's not even able to remember. When we're going to follow him, Bart and I are going to go, and we're going to start working with him. We're going to go week to week, and we're going to see what we see. Right. Because he's not going to say, well, I really feel better because I want to. Do you know what I mean?
That's right. That's right.
So it's going to be...
It eliminates the placebo. It eliminates any chance of faking something.
Yeah. So our goal is to get him to walk up straighter, not to catch his toe and trip over the smallest little thing because he's flexed at the hip and bent over at the trunk, and to make him be able to be more upright so that it's healthier for him, not only, you know, from digestion to breathing to moving his arms and shoulders.
And what have you done on the neuro side already? Because this is your patient of what, like 10 years?
Probably so. Yeah, and then I've become a family friend. So I'm there weekly to give him something to do, to give him through some exercises and whatever, and to keep him strong. I came on after he had a cervical fusion, because in addition to this head injury, he had had so much spinal trauma from being in coma, probably 6 months, and you know all those things that happen. And then with the consequences of the brain injury, he had some cervical disc disease and stenosis, and now has a fusion. After the fusion, he had had central cord syndrome, you know, the central spinal cord gets pinched and his legs were weak and so forth. So that's when I came in. And
well, you probably were able to do a lot already.
Did a lot with that. So over the years...
How much of what you did was in the vein of fasciology? Because Kathleen and I used to work together, but we didn't. I don't even think we called it fasciology at that time.
No, but we have done stretch to win and stretch therapy. So we were already doing PNF techniques for stretch. So the first thing I did when I saw him, looking at this old neurological brain injury and his spasticity issues and muscle imbalance issues, was get him a table and get him some straps and do things like that. And so I did a lot of PNF, proprioceptive.
For those of you that don't know what PNF is, it's a stretching technique, and we have tons of free PNF videos on my YouTube channel, but it's basically where you trick the brain into thinking that it's going to get injured, and you've got a little quick window of opportunity to stretch further than you normally will. You use this in pro sports.
Yeah.
I used it all the time. It's in my ICE DVDs. All of that is that PNF.
Yeah, I always say it's sort of resetting the stretch sensor or resetting the mind of the muscle to teach it a new place to rest.
Right.
Okay, so my background is treatment of neurological spasticity, and so I use a lot of neuromuscular and neurological techniques for spasticity management. So opening him up that way, dealing with the old neuro injury, but then looking at how do we, now that we have the spinal cord free from this injury in the neck, trying to restore normal movement to him. So that's really where it's been. Now, there's been lots of progress in those areas, getting him to walk from a walker to, because we had to restore strength, we had to restore normal neuromuscular reflexes. Think about the reflexes affected by that central cord syndrome.
But this is what's exciting, is Kathleen and I we saw each other at the bank the other day.
Yeah.
And I was like, you have to come over, we have to talk about this, but what was it about the FasciaBlaster that you were like, I need to dive in that crazy bowl?
That's a fabulous question. So here's the deal. So I just think that this has potential to hit the magic buttons, if you will.
Agree.
Okay, and I'm not saying I understand it yet, but this is what's fun about this movement that Ashley has, and why I think it's so exciting that she would let me talk to y'all and be a part of it, is that I don't know why, but I think that we've all been trying to touch the magic buttons to reset the muscle spindles in the muscle, to reset find the neuromuscular junction, to find, to touch those places, to find that energy, to feel those areas of increased metabolic activity, to rid of metabolic waste. We're using taping to raise up the skin so we can get lymphatic drainage. Oh, that's fascia fluid.
I know. I was not going to say anything. I was going to let her get away with it.
No. But it's the doors are opening to saying this.
Well, and you're saying, like, for sure in pro sports they're trying.
Yeah, they're
but
trying.
we're all just missing it a little.
It's getting easier than it has been, but it's still there. It's still not there yet.
Okay, but you take these glasses that everybody has on, and they're all fogged up, but you get one little spot you can see through. And we're going to go through that little spot until we get all of this fog gone, we can all see it, but we don't yet. So this is just an area that I said, how cool is this going to be? I haven't touched them with a device, ever. And I've been working 10 years on these spastic hip flexors. Some is real passive range of motion constraints, but some is the elastic spasticity that is.
So what you guys missed in the conversation, and I think this is when I whipped out the phone and said, people are interested. Not everybody, like I said, not everybody wants to hear this, but one of the things that I find so fascinating about fascia is there is concrete evidence that it is a communicatory system between the brain and the body. And we've seen it with Parkinson's, we've seen it with MS. I have videos that I've posted, is that a 100-person study? Have we proved it in the scientific community? No. Do we care? Not really. What I care about is that even in my own body, we're talking about how the body wants to go back to a place of dysfunction, particularly if there's trauma, and I mean emotional or physical trauma. A bad tackle where somebody's hemmed up. We were talking about a patient that Kathleen and I shared years ago, who her body literally would go to the position in which she was hoisted in the car wreck. So that's not just, I'm in spasm, because we can strip that spasm out. That's where I feel like I'm a pro. I can manually, and with the blaster and with the nugget, pretty much dig out anything. But the key is, how do you get the body to tell the brain, hey, chill out and let me go back? And I believe that's not the nervous system. I believe that's the fascial system.
You want to put the body in a position to where they're comfortable, where they're functioning correctly, because pretty much whenever a malalignment happens, something's off and your body's trying to protect itself. That's what spasm is.
Well, and people always think spasm is muscle, but I think it's fascial, and then the muscle ends up getting caught up in it. But it's almost like it can't be the muscle, because the muscle doesn't have that direct access to the brain the way the fascia does.
The fascia and the nerves are the ones that are actually connected to the brain.
Well, and you and I were combing through the dorkiness. I think we talked about this too, is that at least the initial reports are showing that the communication is 3 times faster through the fascia than it is the nervous system. If that's the case, then your nervous system is dial-up, and your fascia's, high-speed internet.
High
and so if
speed.
you're trying to reverse something going on in the brain, then there's just no way around restoring the fascia. Like you could do whatever manipulation you want in the brain. I'm even thinking about Kathleen. She's so amazing. Like I've seen her cure migraines that people had for 10 years and vertigo with some very famous people who I won't mention just because I don't have their permission to, but like really serious vestibular stuff. I remember in the clinic we had this one guy, I was like, oh my God, why is that guy in a helmet? And she's like, he's dizzy. So this was my first brush point with that vestibular world, but that really is fascia, isn't it?
The vertigo and vestibular things, I think it's related. But let me jump to a story that we didn't even talk about today. We're talking about this one lady with her car accident retraction. Do you remember the Olympic athlete from Jamaica who was the triple jumper?
Suzette Lee. Hi,
Maybe.
Suzette Lee. I think she's in our
Okay,
group.
so part of my story then is, and I always tell this, that doesn't sound like her name, but it might be. Okay, I don't remember. Jamaican
The
triple
one
jumper.
that talked like this. And
Well,
she
yeah.
was like, Ashley,
Super tall.
you gotten so good now.
Trained
She
at
worked with
Rice
me.
and got assaulted.
Yeah.
And that was her name. Okay. So it's part of my story about and about this importance of what you're talking about, the memory and the emotions and the things connected with.
Which, by the way, comes up on the page all the time. The emotional detox.
Yes. Oh yeah. People are feeling it. Why am I stressed? Why am I crying? Why am I this? And why am I peeing? I mean, all those things.
And why am I starting my period? Sorry.
Yeah. True. But this girl, so she had gotten assaulted training at Rice and had some serious hamstring issues, and she was a Jamaican triple jumper about to go to the Pan Am game.
Yep, I
The
remember.
my arm strings, or whatever. I can do English. I can't do anything else.
These are her harms
Yes.
and her strings. Reverse
So,
the
but for you, athletic training and musculoskeletal
Or and all
people.
you who are just treating yourself.
So listen, so we did everything to fix her hamstring.
Known
jacked
to
up.
man.
Yeah.
Okay?
All the conventional
Got her range of
treatment.
motion back. Her strength was
Stripped
normal.
it out.
It was
Pulled
it
out her
felt
head.
perfect. She was ready to go. But the psycho-emotional and let's say you hear that?
I don't know if y'all hear my ringtone or not, but
Sorry.
I have to have it
Okay.
on my phone. So occasionally, if you get that little blip,
No, but
that's fine.
using traditional things that you would do for your professional athletes, what we've done for professional athletes or whatever. Anyway, this was many years ago. Okay,
This was like
This was
12, 15.
15 years ago. I
Yeah.
don't know what. But anyway, but this is monumental in my work. Those things didn't cure her ability to go out and do the triple jump. Why? Let me just tell you. Because she had one eye over her shoulder ready for that attacker who got her at 6:30 a.m. in the morning when she was training at a university to get ready for the games.
It also explains the phantom pain and
So here's this somatic manifestation of an emotional trauma. It is when that happened with that lady that we were introducing into our practice at that time some other people who had some other ideas, who were having success with professional athletes and dealing with their post-traumatic psyche to deal with making sure it was open, like we had opened her hip or opened her hamstring.
because you can't separate them.
Can't
It
separate.
is brain to body, body to brain, and I would throw in spirit.
Yep.
Without going too far off the deep end, but I would throw in the spirit. I think it is all one thing, and that's our problem with our blinders and our fog glasses.
We're gonna have so much fun talking about this for hours and hours. But, it's amazing. But
Pull up
this
a
girl,
chair.
But I'm gonna tell you that in minutes of dealing with her from a perspective of dealing with the images in her mind, which had to do with is that person coming? Even look at these people with triple injury and ACL and medial meniscus. These
They talk about how they're in sports. We just call it. What do we say? It's like they're resistant or they're guarding.
Yeah, they're guarding.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're not
So if
guarding.
you don't release that,
They're not guarding.
it's the psycho-emotional turned somatic. Anyway, so for her, in a matter of minutes and in one session, she added 12 inches to her triple jump and qualified in the games or whatever it was. I mean, it was incredible. It wasn't anything we were doing with her fascia, with her muscles, with her this, with her this. All those things mattered, and the beautiful things you did could have restored her. But we're talking now about where are these telephone lines from the hip and the hamstring to the brain and to the emotion and to the psyche? So I spent 6 years, this is what I was going to tell you, spent 6 years training in eidetic image psychology. It is the study of that mind-body connection. What images do we have in our mind? It's why we have people image for success, but also even subconscious images. How do we change the image in the mind to allow the body to move. All this is related to those
And vice versa.
Yes.
And vice versa.
Yes. And we know backwards already. We know if we touch you somewhere, you're going to start crying and feel and think of your mother. But how could I not go from the body to the mind, but go from the mind even then to release the body?
No
because
doubt.
if you open up the fascia and you open up the muscles, I sometimes go this way. And
Well,
then
we've
it's free.
seen it be a problem both directions.
Yeah.
You know, you can go fix your mind all you want, but if you, because of the recoil or spasticity, you're now actually physically in that position, like the car wreck. You have to do both.
You do.
Which I think is the hugest.
So
That's why
let me
we're
say,
friends. No.
it is. Well, but it's three things. It's the image, the mind, the body, and the meaning. They all have
they
a
all
relationship.
connected.
So there's three things. It's the triad of mind or of image and soma and meaning. And some people are stuck in meaning. Some of the people on the group are so stuck in, what does it mean what she's doing? What does it mean what she's doing? And some people are going, I want to see this. I want to see these results. I want to see this. And some people are going, I'm going to just, feel this. So we all come from different places.
Yeah,
and we're
some people just
dominated by
say,
different
I'm going to
things.
buy it and I don't care what it does. I'm just going to rub it on me and reach out to Ashley every day. That's fine, by the way. But it's true. I think everybody has like that different way of processing, if you will.
Yes, it's kind of like what kind of learner are you?
Now, you said that worked on that track athlete that was assaulted. Now, is that the similar as if like a athlete was coming back from an ACL and he couldn't load that knee, load that hip, he was afraid to get in there, and he hit a plateau? Is that the same kind of?
It's exactly the plateau.
Okay.
That is where, now I grew up in physical therapy years ago where Cybex.
Yeah,
Do
the
they still?
the isokinetic
Okay,
machine.
all isokinetic
It's a little bit
machines.
dead now. It's a little bit dead now.
If
but
anybody works for Cybex, you can speak up for yourself.
It doesn't matter the
I don't think
company,
anybody
but-
works for Cybex
But,
anymore.
but I always felt like you're looking at peak torque production throughout the range of motion.
That's right.
Okay, so when you have a real injury, you're going to see that blip in they can't produce peak torque throughout a range of motion. Once you get that restored, let's say Cybex or isokinetic,
Whatever.
but they still can't do it.
So yeah, because a
That's
lot
the
of
plateau.
people like in the physical therapy, the sports medicine
Right,
community,
we're
they like
looking at that
seeing the
wrong.
immeasurable,
Or the
Yeah.
the
strength.
measurable parts of the injury.
Right.
One, for insurance reasons. I mean, and two, to help document in case something does happen, they
But
retear
let
that
me tell you this,
ACL.
and the three of us know this true, and all of you personal trainers, chiros, MDs, whoever out there, I think you'll find this interesting. Anyone, and even me, I consider myself to be a bit of a biomechanics expert. I can tell you beyond any shadow of a doubt that biomechanics has not been written, because we only know one, muscle at a time. We know, a delt raises the arm. That doesn't include the fascia. So I think, like, aside from the psychosomatic and the meaning attached to it, that going back to the actual movement, we're trying to segment the body the
Yes.
same way we're trying to segment it emotionally, spiritually, memory, all of that. You cannot separate the fascia from the biomechanics, because I can tell you this, and I've seen it. I've seen it with a football player for the Texans. You may have been there at the time. We had a guy who constantly, he was the backup quarterback, and he came in every week with knots in his hamstrings. And we would strip him out, and we would, very next week, he'd be right back, and we're like, why does he still have knots in his hamstrings? Do you remember? Okay, so turns out, you may have even been the one that did it. We're like, he's overusing his hamstrings. So we're like, let's make him do something to contract his quads. So we had him do a squat. Do you remember what happened? We put EMG on his quads, had him do a squat, and guess what the EMG registered? Because a squat's a quad exercise, right? Particularly at the lower end of the motion. It registered 0.
He's using his
So
hamstrings in
zero-
his squat.
He's doing his hamstrings.
Hamstrings, backside, fascia, whatever. And I think that was like a huge aha moment in my career a long time ago, that we can use anything to accomplish movement. I think I'm the perfect example. Like, I'm basically missing a right leg. I have God knows what anatomy with all the things that had to be cut for me to have my abnormal hip replacement. But I can still snowboard and surf, and it's because I can leverage the fascia. So I think that's a huge point, that, first of all, biomechanics haven't been written. This whole concept of how the brain really relates to the body and back, we don't know. I think that's the biggest point, because people always say, well, what do you think and what do you want and what does the research show? I mean, I go out to the research and I try to put the dots together of, stuff that's going on in Germany and But at the end of the day, we don't know.
I look for commonality in languages because there are a bunch of movements out there, whether it's the athletic trainer movement or the somatics or the physical therapy or the chiropractic, all those things. Yeah. And so what are we all trying to say? We know. Well, you're talking about our short-sightedness.
I think what we know is that we don't know. That's what I'd like to say.
Could we just sign up for that and say, you want proof that this works? We know what we don't know. And that's a lot. But that's key. Because that tells everybody out there looking at your product, you mean it's possible that it really does work? Heck yeah, it's possible that it really does work. Because there's so much we don't know.
Yep.
And believe me, everything I've studied, I mean, it came from a scientific background, and if I didn't have a white coat on, maybe 2 of them at once, I didn't feel important. And I had to walk through the halls with looking at the race of how many letters can you have after your name to justify what we were doing.
Right. But instead of actually helping people, we're trying to prove it.
Been there.
Yeah, me too.
Done that. So my life's work, this is part of your journey too. I know where you relate that way, is can I help somebody? And you categorize them in your brain as a healer. You're going, okay, well then the next person you see, you're not going to a study, but you're going to that one other person you helped that's kind of like that and kind of like this and kind of like that. So we're doing our own research in our head and we're finding things that work. And I don't care anymore if it doesn't satisfy the stuffy community. I remember the day I took my white lab coat off. Yep. And I didn't care about the initials after my name.
Bart still has a white lab coat.
We got it?
That's okay. He's going to pull the research for us.
Yeah. That's okay. It's okay. I have to go to those places too and talk to those people.
Absolutely.
And I want to.
Well, and we do want to back this up. Yeah. I mean, part of what we're doing with this particular... So we're going to go work with the Vietnam traumatic brain injury. We're also going to work with a guy who is wheelchair bound that was very involved with the ADA Act. Right, is that right? ADA, yeah. I thought for a second, American Disabilities Act. Very influential people, and we're going to kind of do our own informal research. We're going to share it with the group. We're going to video it. We're going to basically...
See what happens.
We're going to add the FasciaBlaster.
We are. We're going to add the FasciaBlaster to a traditionally neurological physical therapy kind of thing.
What would be we kind of were talking about what the anticipated outcomes are. I know the guy who's been over, I was like, well, he's going to be straight up. Yeah. I've done it so many times that there's no question in my mind. He will be straight up, and he will probably be straight up within a couple of weeks. So that's my anticipated outcome. Is that yours?
That's it. Well, so by walking straight up, he's not going to trip and fall anymore.
That's right.
He's going to stand up straight for pictures when he's standing with dignitaries.
Yep.
He's going to access his musculature so he can go up and down stairs easier, that he can present himself more professionally and look better, and he's not going to fall. He is falling, and you just don't want him to hit his head again. That poor brain's already been shaken around once, or hurt his neck or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
So you know that with the bent over position, he can't swing his foot all the way through. It's obvious because of all those constraints.
And what about our wheelchair guy?
So the wheelchair guy, he is a quadriplegic. Has
By the way, I know a lot of you, because you've written to me, this goes for anybody with CP, wheelchair bound, any type of spinal cord injury,
MS.
Yeah,
these are all upper motor neuron kinds of lesions, if you want to say that. So this is a.
But I can tell you this: we have, and she might chime in. I don't want to say her name just because I don't have her permission. But there is a person in our group who has MS, who's been using the FasciaBlaster on her arms, head, and really everywhere else. She used it for cellulite. But MRI to MRI, which is how we measure MS, is the lesions on the brain. She's having less lesions on the brain. So that means
explain that one.
Explain that one. I mean, all I can do is theorize based on a gazillion hours of experience. But what I believe is happening is that the message from all of that work is saying, let go of the grasp. So we look at it and we put ourselves in that box that the lesions on the brain are causing the spasticity in the body, when maybe the spasticity in the body. I know. I'm out. I'm gonna have a sandwich. All right.
But do you know how exciting it is? You're making videos about how to do it, how to do this, how to do this. Now I'm going to see that we're going to say, this is what to think about. This is what to image. This is what to do this. So because we understand, no, we don't understand. We know the potentials of the brain.
Right. We've seen some results.
We've seen some results in the potentiality of the imaging and the meaning and the soma and the connections there. And to say, what is it going to be like if we really want to talk to the brain through the FasciaBlaster and through these fascial planes and these nerves that go from head to toe.
And the fascial fluid.
That's it. Yeah, that's our magic juice.
So what sparked the original, I gotta whip out I'm actually kind of hoping
Which is
there's a
crazy.
fascia person out there that's going to be like, I read something. But I was saying to this date, and I've read everything from the Fascia Congress. I mean, I go out of my way to actually have papers translated. Me and Bart have
Yeah,
been,
that's how I did in my work.
we've been looking
yeah.
through the
They're
cellular
Polish-
books, you know,
Polish,
whatever is
yeah,
available.
I did
Polish
that.
articles. and-
Everybody knows that there's some sort of fluid in the
Yes.
fascia, but I've seen it called fascial fluid. I've just seen it called hydration. I don't know what that actually means. I've seen them saying, there's the 25 times magnified video, they just say that it's water. But I think that's an assumption. I just told Kathleen, I said, what if it's alien fluid? And I mean it in a funny way.
Yeah.
But we don't know what that fluid is, and we don't know what that capability is. But I can tell you, I've seen it so many times that there's no way that you could tell me anything that doesn't say that that conductor does not communicate with the brain. And if that's the case, then restoring your fascia, whether you use it on your fat butt or, you know, for cellulite on your legs or for your arms for MS or your brain or what the restless leg syndrome, the Parkinson's and things that we're showing, there's no way you can tell me that there is not an impact.
So
Body to brain.
let's just do like people do on TV and say they can predict who's going to win the Super Bowl. We're going to make a projection.
And this is live, so you know it's not faked.
No, not at all. I'm just thinking. So you call it hydration because it has hydrogen in it because it's water, but yours is not the same as mine, is the same as someone else. So when you look at your different jacked up fascias, I forgot how you call them those categories.
Yeah, hail
You're gonna-
damage versus car wreck versus
Okay.
beyond
Those,
down.
let's say that one day we're going to know which one has a different pH than the other one.
Yep.
Which one has more of this, more of that, more of that, and then what we're going to do with this mechanics. I'm just prophesying here. No, is that we're going to understand that because this is what's happened in our understanding of neurology over the last 30 years anyway.
Well, and what you guys don't realize, and I try to like keep all the catty and crap out because let me tell you what we're doing right here. Those of you who are watching right this second, you are making history because we have more people treating their fascia than the entire worldwide fascia community combined. This is the research. Why is Tara inboxing me? That to me is data.
Yeah.
This is data. You're creating the data. And before the FasciaBlaster, it's not that people didn't pinch themselves and didn't get massages and probably didn't get work, but this is something that you can do every single day to yourself, where if you're like me and your brain attacks you every single day, I want to do the work with you.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll do it live.
Well,
but what I'm saying is like my body always tries to go back to a place of trauma and I'm able to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
And I'm actually able to be pain-free a lot, you know, and I'm able to perform at a much higher level than if you MRI'd me. I'm a nightmare, a disaster, right? So that's the beauty to me of having the tool.
So did we talk about on film about this idea of getting to the muscles, releasing the memory, and then the memory doing the muscles? Were we on for that part?
I don't know, but just go ahead and repeat it. 'Cause that's
Well,
interesting.
just
don't think so.
well, just the idea that some people
Well, people want to talk
watching-
about the muscle spindles or like what your traditional education tells us, and this piece, well, anything in the spirit, energy, or sometimes the psychosomatic is taken out. But I can tell you what most people believe is just kind of the old model of the muscle spindles.
Muscle spindles, GTO.
I know. Her face is like,
That's what-
let me, that's like, I'm
No, but that's where people are. People are all different places. That's what's fun. This is
It's
a huge
measurable.
community of people that have all different things. We're all in different places.
That's
it's
right.
a fun journey to make. It's fun. It's exciting to talk about. That's why we are. But just, I mean, people out there are experiencing this connection to the emotion and so forth when they're being touched and when they're being released.
Can you
And I
can
think
you
that's
speak
what
to
we're
that
talking
with
about.
your expertise? Because you know what I always tell people, I'm like, I'm not an expert at this, but there are people who are. And I try to acknowledge that it exists, that I've experienced it. I've definitely experienced one story I love, and it was with a famous person, and she actually is putting it in her book, and when it's released, I'll tell you. But so she had a memory. I started working on her back, and she instantly started crying, and it was the first session, so it was a little awkward. And I was like, I just told her, I'm like, look, whatever's going on with you, you're safe with me, and just let it out. And so when we get done, she tells me that when she was a little girl, that she remembers coming home and there were ambulances outside of her home. I'm gonna cry talking about it. Ambulance is outside of her home. Long story short, her mother had passed. And she went upstairs and she like screamed out, and her sister told her to be quiet because people downstairs could hear her. And she said that she literally stuffed that emotion into her back, and she doesn't think that she had moved or addressed it ever since, and it came out like that. So I've had that, and I could tell you 100 more stories like that. So I don't know how to cure that. That's not my thing, but I think so many women are experiencing the emotional detox. What could you tell them in terms of a process to manage it on their own without having to have, the world expert?
Well, I think what you said is amazing. And let me just correct you on one thing you said wrong. You said, I don't know how to fix it. And I would say, yes, you do, because you are.
Well,
I mean, it is.
I'm throwing spaghetti at it for sure.
It is happening. People are talking.
Well, and
about
it's happening to them.
It is.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. And they're already going, why is this happening? You're going, it is happening. So that's again a bonus. And for those who are just trying to work on a particular thing they don't like what they're looking at, they're gonna have those things too and find out.
Right. You can't separate it. You can't just be like, I just want to get rid of my cellulite, but I don't want to address fascia restoration.
But this is like the tip of the iceberg in saying, we have a tool. We're going to put oil on the body. We're going to warm it up first. So we're creating the optimal environment for fascia blasting.
Mm-hmm.
That recommendation you have already made for the optimal environment to get the most out of the tool is going to grow, because we're going to be able to make, I think, if people want it, more recommendations about how to breathe, how to prepare, how to think,
visualize,
how to image, and how to exhale. Let's just say that oxygen
and to feel.
So
these are all things, by the way, that I personally do and just haven't broached over into this subject, but I think that we have so many people curious that now's the time.
So if we took
to start talking about it. Bart, are you wigging out? Like this is I'm just wondering about all of our football players in the San Francisco locker room, if they're going to be doing their visual. But they do.
Yes.
To the performance side, it's the same thing.
But hang on. But even as far as our nervous system, there's a lot of energy in this room. But in a matter of moments, I could bring down the frequency of this whole place and get everybody to get more oxygen to their tissues and to their fascial fluid and to their nervous system. To get into that parasympathetic state, which is an empathic state, which is a connection to the mind, which is a relaxed neuromuscular state where you then have changes even chemically in the activation of musculature and the sensitivity of spasticity and all of those things. So it's growing our optimal environment.
When she talks
and
about
we've never even talked about this, so I'm just going.
Spasticity.
Yes.
Just for the non-sciencey people, that really is just tight. That's a fancy word for tightness.
And it's our muscle tone.
Or the common person says, that's where I hold stress.
Yeah.
Those terms.
So we all relaxed our neuromuscular energy measurably by just changing the frequency of energy in the room, the tone, the pacing, the whatever. So when I work with anybody,
it's so funny though, because these gals are blasting to Beyonce and everything else. I'm feeling for that too.
It's great for that. It depends on what you want. But I'm talking about where we're going with these case studies too.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about, we were talking about injury. We were talking about injury that leaves lasting mechanical dysfunction. And I think that was a little different than, blasting to Beyonce for a pure fitness or aesthetic. Really kind of different. But when there's dysfunction in there, and when for those who are just, it's purely aesthetic or it's fitness or it's beauty, great. But if you reach a plateau, you're going to find out why, maybe, that you've got something jacked up in there that needs a little bit tweaking. That's why I said the environment is not going to be for everybody. But when you reach that plateau with your Beyonce and you're going, oh, it's a sold.
When you have to bounce Beyonce.
Well,
yeah, it's a sold injury.
Let me just say this. My phone just popped up and said 20%, so if it happens to cut off, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're bad.
Well, just think about, over the course of the years, how many people you've treated, what's the best way they heal and get better is the perfect environment. If the environment's crap, you're limited to how well
I think that's
everything
external
can work.
and internal. Like, for instance, I tell people when somebody tears a ligament, I'm like, no, I can't fix a torn ligament. But what I can do is put it in a place where it's not being stressed. I can put it in a place where the blood is rushing to it. So that's the internal environment. And then Kathleen's talking about adding that.
And that's just another aspect of the perfect environment. If, like she said, once you plateau, there's got to be something else you can address to reach the next 5-10% you need to
And
get
this
to.
is where I'm
I
challenged.
wonder too how much of this has to do with the people who are beyond bound. You've been reading
Okay.
about it.
So
And
this is-
beyond bound, I can tell you from a physical standpoint, it's like every single thing is on lock to the point where you can't pinch skin.
Yeah.
So it's almost like if it were an
it-
emotional state, it's a constant state of, oh crap.
So I think we're at a point now with as many messages as you've gotten, and you're getting videos and pictures all the time. And I'm not chiming in yet because we haven't talked about, what I might add to it. But I
Well,
want to
you
know.
feel free to say whatever you
Yeah,
want.
I know, but I'm looking. But I'm busy too.
Everybody's going to be like, where's that Kathleen?
I'm busy, but no, but to look at, is it this beyond bound people who are most frustrated that they're not getting the result they want? Who are they, and how do we look at them? And that's the ones I would want to look at and go, maybe we could do something about their atmosphere. I think about back to when we used to work together, even in the same space, that the space you needed was not the space I needed. And you're talking about optimal environment. I was doing neurological rehabilitation versus sports medicine. Very different.
So, yeah,
So basically, we're like loud and blaring music, and
might-
Kathleen's trying to do craniosacral.
I mean, you might be using the same tools, but
Yeah.
it's not going to be used as well for each patient. So
That's what I mean.
and that's-
Everybody out there, what do they need?
And that's why the whole point, the whole FasciaBlaster is for individuality and self-treatment. I mean,
Well, and
so-
that's why I didn't launch it with practitioners, because you're a practitioner, I'm a practitioner, and you're a practitioner. If you guys want to go use it, any practitioner out there, I am all for it. But I wanted to have each individual person have their own individual experience with it and take how much they could take and how much they could take in that moment. Because I know for me, even when I'm getting treated or treating myself, some days I'm just like at my limit, and I'm like, I'll even tell Bart if he's treating me, I'm like, just no pain today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Just make
So
it- make it
that's why
nice.
that's why the tool's so great, because you can pace yourself for what you need in that moment, and you can take a break from it. You can come back, and that was where my heart was giving these women and their husbands, who they've roped to it, and the pro athletes that I've
You
roped
get
into
there.
it too, giving them the control.
I love it. So when people are looking for, and hopefully maybe people are a little frustrated, sometimes they want exactly the right instructions, how many times, how do I do it, exactly. What we're looking at now is a bigger picture of the guidelines having to do with what's the best environment for this particular body that we're working on, and then getting concepts of, for some they have to have the heat with dry sauna or wet sauna or shower or exercise or whatever you're going to warm it up. For some it's different, but I think that the fun of it is, as many people as participating, we're going to find out why people aren't getting the results they want. What maybe are they missing? How do we guide them to do things a little bit differently? It doesn't mean everybody's going to shift to the new suggestion, but I think that once we find all the different things that work for people, we'll be able to break down and put up
Protocols, better protocols.
And then
protocols and guidelines.
Correct me if I'm wrong. If you have a patient and what you think it should be working, sometimes just doesn't work. And what's the first thing you do? It's like, well, all right, I'm gonna start thinking outside the box. I'm gonna try something different. Lo and behold, it works. Sometimes maybe some of the ladies need to try that. They're just going after the same spot. I mean, I saw one earlier today in the group. She was blasting her hammies and glutes, and she hasn't noticed bruising. Well, it's like, sometimes we know bruising isn't always.
Doesn't have to be
doesn't
part
have
of
to
it.
happen.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as long as you're feeling better and you think it's working, then bruising
it
might
is.
not happen. And I mean,
Or
if
it may be
someone's
so
a bruiser,
deep that you can't see
so
it, or-
everyone's different, and sometimes you just got to try. Hey, well, I did my glutes for a month and nothing's happened. Well, let me try the hamstrings more, the calves more.
Because it's all connected.
It's all
You can't
connected. So I
isolate
mean,
out
if
pieces.
you just go isolation, it's not going to be as effective as you're looking for.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I think what I wanted to do with the live feed, this is like my overall message, because, a lot of times I'll get people, oh, she's out to make a buck or whatever. Like, there's so much history here. Me and Kathleen go back down near 20 years. Bart started with me
When I was
when you were in high school.
high school, 17.
Yeah, so these conversations happen every single day. We just don't have you guys in on them. But these are the minds that are out there and just basically saying, screw what we think. Let's just be open-minded. And rather than go, oh, that's not going to work, and look at this chemical, and let's look at that research, we just say, let's try it. And that's what all of you are doing. You are trying it. We are getting the feedback. We're going to take specific case studies and things that I haven't personally worked with. I don't work with people in wheelchairs. I have a little doing some tissue work, done little horses. I've done some pretty
we haven't even gotten to animals yet. We're going to have to talk about animals.
I know. Everybody.
I know some people are doing animals. We'll have to do that. Yeah, because we can do the neuro on the animals and all that.
But I think, so what I want to tee up, what is coming down the pipe, number one, is that Bart is in all of the research. He's so great at pulling the academia in. And so whenever we say, hey, you know, this works for everyone, what we mean is that everyone's fascia can be impacted by it. And then we're going to have some data to support it. And then with Kathleen and Bart and me, we're going to go just do these 2 case studies for right now. But you guys are going to be able to watch and track their results.
And I'll kind of participate in the practitioner's conversation on a scientific level. Those who don't want to talk about it don't have to follow it, but we can certainly throw around language and
well, and if you are a practitioner and
right.
you want to start participating in this, one of the things that we were talking about is taking all of the data that we're getting from this enormous group of people who are impacting their fascia and creating that kind of think tank board and whatnot. So if you're interested, all you ever have to do is PM me. We create lists for all these types of things. But I just want to let you guys know this is the direction that we're going. This has been the direction that we've been going for 20 years. It's just that finally now we have a way. I could never figure out how could I get my hands on, you know, 100,000 bodies. Well, now this is how.
So just be patient because the desire.
We're making it.
The desire is there. But if there was, you're talking about maybe a separate Facebook group for practitioners or something, because you could have as much enthusiasm and energy going into these research ideas and research questions. And I know there's enough knowledge and experience out there and desire to coordinate that. So I'm happy to be a part of that. If that's something you want me to do, I'm happy to do that and then get those people in the same room.
Well, I know Bart
do
wants
these
to be a
kinds
part
of
of that.
things. So I think that'd be fun because I think this community already.
I know he's taking notes. We've got the notes.
Yeah, no, it's going to be.
So I think we'll wrap up the live feed just because I'm afraid the phone's going to die. But I hate that I always get caught looking like this. I'm sure one day when I have my own TV show and whatnot, there's going to be the world's ugliest memes because of these videos. But I don't care.
Before the phone dies, can I just personally endorse you with all of my encouragement?
Go for it! Yes!
I do. I know, for whatever it means. You don't know me, but I know science. And I know this community. And Houston is a really big community. We have the largest medical center in the world here. And coming from an academic and teaching and research background, and then my practice in neurological physical therapy is with rich and famous people like yours is in body work. And so having known Ashley for really 20 years and watching our kids grow up and so forth, and then we didn't talk for a long time. She's the real deal, and I love and I'm thrilled as I can be to watch the success that's come to you and to watch people trust you and know your heart. And I just want to tell you that hang on with it and hang on with Ashley and watch this happen because her heart is there to get scientific validation, to get experts to support her, not just to get celebrity endorsements
it's
or
so
to make
hard,
a buck.
though. Tell them how hard it is
I just to tell you,
research.
it is super difficult. So
I had a 10-person case study where we showed that every single person got rid of back pain for non-operable compressed disc. Couldn't even get a grant with 10 people. 10 people.
It's easy to sit back there and say, you need to. I don't know what we need to do. I don't think at this moment it's going to be traditional hardcore science. I think it's going to be those who want to believe and find the hope and believe in you. And there's already so many thousands who do, Ashley. That's our customer.
I agree.
And we're going to give you what you want, but then we might say, it's not going to happen here. Some university will pick this up and do it, like you said.
Yep, they will.
But we're going to satisfy you. And thanks for participating, and it's been fun. Thanks for letting me do that.
I know. For sandwiches. Sorry, Bart, you didn't get to talk much.
It's all right.
Bart's the guy in the sea of girls. But yeah, thank you guys for joining for the live feed. If there's someone that you want to share the feed with, it's real easy. You just hit the share button. But I'm thinking of people who do work for hospital systems or people who know somebody who's working on their PhD. You know, we do want the research and we will participate and we can leverage the group. And you are real users. If you followed a protocol, you could be part of that stage. So anyway, I'm just putting it out there with all my heart that I want to impact social awareness on this issue. All right. Have a good day. Ciao.